Hey folks, welcome to the final episode of our RCA TD62. What you're looking at here is the Bendix Par 80 that I got from our good friend Bill, old 64 Goat. And you're looking at that, and we're gonna work on that next. But let me get the old RCA on the bench here, and I'll talk about what we've done, what we've learned, and where we're going from there. So let me do that, and we'll be right back. Okay, so here we are. This is our RCA T62, and you can see that I've got the chassis all cleaned. So the entire chassis has been polished. I've also replaced the IF cans on this radio because they had some type of pot metal originally, which split over time from the pressure of the clips. So I've replaced them. I've remounted the coils inside, and I think I showed you that in one of our videos. I've also reinstalled our Magic Eye tube, which is really nothing more than a tube that connects to the AVC circuit and shows you how strong your signal coming in is. This is where we've replaced our electrolytics. So I've used an EL84 tube shield and socket that comes from an amplifier, and I've stuffed it with the necessary capacitors for this radio, and it sits right here. And we'll tip it up so you can see that real quick. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a dab of JB Weld so that no one can take this off. We obviously don't want that exposed, but that's what we're going to do there. And then we've taken off our tuning cap and cleaned it. We have not fixed our push buttons. If you recall, the push buttons had a piece of fabric that goes from here to here, and the fabric was broken over time. And I need to think about how I may want to repair that. The way this works is based on the adjustment of this screw here in the front that sticks out, which is right here. We'll tip that up so you can see it. There's a little slot here, and by turning that slot on that adjustment, it determines how far in this thing goes. And when you do that, it actually turns the tuning dial like that. So I'm going to leave it disconnected for the time being because the radio does play well, but we've done that. We've also put in a new dial string, Bill's favorite. We've also replaced the speaker wires coming out of this thing, and we've put some heat shrink there and some strain relief. And we've also replaced the wire that goes to the dial lamp right here. So let's flip it over on the bottom side and take a peek at under there, what we've done. All right, so you've all been along for the ride here. If you remember, when we first got this thing, it had the wrong value capacitors inside, and there were capacitors attached to capacitors. And you also recall when I recapped it, I made a mistake of doing the same thing, and one of you caught that and told me, so thank you. But we now have the right capacitors in place. Put some light on. And we've also replaced this capacitor right under here, and the reason why that's important is this is the tone capacitor. And there was a .047 in there, actually a .47 that someone had put in, and the radio really didn't have any tone response when it was in there. When I put it in the original, which is a .05, you can definitely differentiate between bass and treble. You got to remember, a bass control doesn't add treble, right? There's no such thing as adding treble. What you're doing is you're filtering, essentially. So that's how it works. So it's about the amount of bass that you're filtering, essentially. So that's been put in place. We've replaced all of the resistors that were out of tolerance. We've done that. Obviously replaced all the other capacitors. We've also wired this thing correctly so that the hot side is going to the switch, so you can never have a hot chassis. Of course, there is a transformer in this radio anyway, so it's not a hot chassis set to begin with, but we've made it safe and brought it up to standards, which is good. We've also made any adjustments that we need to make under here as far as wiring goes. And there was a big glob of solder right here that we had to replace. I had to clean up a number of these tube sockets, and I had to add a terminal strip right here, which is our central ground coming off our capacitors, electrolytics. And then last thing we did was realign the radio, right? And I showed you the alignment process, and the radio is now in working condition, and it's great. just to talk about what we learned about how to troubleshoot the radio. If you recall, when you get a radio, right, and after you deem it to be safe to plug in, and that's by inspecting the power cord, making sure that there's no shorts underneath the radio, ohming out your transformer to make sure it's not shorted, make sure you use a dim bulb tester. First thing you want to do is see, do I have audio, right? So if you have audio, great. You're half the battle's there. Remember, a radio is split into two sections, audio and RF. Your signal comes in on this side, which is the RF section, and gets stripped out, the carrier signal gets removed. Ultimately, it gets converted to audio, and that's what comes out your audio tube. So we had that little trick where we took a bare piece of wire, and we touched the center wiper of the volume pot, and if we heard noise come out of the speaker, we have an audio section, right? That works. If we didn't, then we would have to check the audio section and get that working. So that was our initial test. We then checked all the voltages, and we made a chart of all the voltages that we had to make sure that the voltages were correct. And you got to remember, wrong components in here mean you need to follow the schematic. So when you follow the schematic, you got to make sure you do it right. Take your time, one line at a time. Everything connects to everything. Very simple process. We then checked the RF side, or the IF side, and we checked our coils. We checked again some of our negative voltage that we're supposed to be getting, and we ohmed out the RF and the IF cans. The IF cans, and we ohmed out those coils. And if you recall on our schematic, it told us what the resistance should be on those. So once we did that, we knew that we had an RF section and we had an RF section. Keep getting that confused today. So we knew that the radio was good, and then it was just a question of doing a standard alignment, and we did that. And we've now got the radio in a great position. The last thing I need to do is put a piece of shielding right here on this wire. This radio, and it's very clear in the description, says that this power lead that comes off of the transformer needs to be shielded. And the reason why is because it runs right over this output tube right here. So we don't want to have any errant noise coming out of this thing and impacting the radio. So we're going to put a piece of shield on that. So that's the radio. The radio is complete. I'm going to work on the case. Here's the speaker. I've also shined up the speaker with our mother's mag polish, and you'll see the speaker looks brand new. I managed not to put my finger through it throughout the entire process, which is great. And I've cleaned it, and the speaker is also in really good shape. So this radio is ready to go. Now I need to work on the case. So in closing, I hope you found this useful. I know it was a very long series. I probably could have knocked this out in one weekend, but I wanted to try to at least teach somebody something. And I have to thank our friend Brendan, who is the one that inspired me and basically gave me the step-by-step on what to teach you. So without Brendan, we wouldn't have had this series at all. And Brendan is a very, very knowledgeable guy. He used to fix TVs and radios, and he's got an amazing amount of knowledge with automobiles and just about everything. Very, very good guy to know. So we want to thank Brendan. I truly appreciate the opportunity to interface with him almost on a daily basis, either through email or otherwise. And I learn so much from him. So thanks to Brendan. And then lastly, I want to thank all of you. Right, those of you that have been watching the videos, have been participating, asking questions, making comments, observing mistakes that I've made, and there have been mistakes, there's no question. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to watch this and learn something. Okay? So this will wrap up our T62. I'm not going to do anything additional here. There were some things I wanted to show you around how to tweak the radio and make it better. Really, a couple things you could do is you can put in a fuse, you could change the tone cap, you can put a variable tone in there. We've done that in a previous series, so there's really no reason to go over it here. So I'm not going to do that here, but this is pretty much it, and we're going to get the case going, and I'll feature this radio in one of my odds and sods videos in the future, showing you what it's looked like when it's complete. So remember, this is number 39, right? Restored in honor of my dad. I did number 41 before that, which is 1941 in honor of my mom. So this is complete. So in our next video, we're going to get back to the Bendix, the PAR 80, and we're going to go through that. This will probably be the last video I do before Christmas. I am going to be taking a trip at the end of the week, and I won't be back until right before Christmas. So I doubt I'll have time to put anything up there. So if I don't, For those that celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to everybody. If you celebrate Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah. If you celebrate something else, happy whatever that is. And I will likely see you guys the week between Christmas and New Year's. Okay? So I hope everyone stays well, and we'll see you guys out there. Take care.